There we go. Okay, welcome everybody to the Unknown Fitness Podcast. This is episode number 11, I believe.
Yep.
I'm Callum, one half of your host, personal trainer and sort of avid keen climber. And with me today is Dave, as always, ex-pro MMA fighter, ultra runner, Spartan racer, and all-around pretty much insane athlete, I have to say.
Hello.
I'm not sure anything you got. I've got too many ideas on the agenda today, so I'll see what happens. I haven't actually really been thinking about. I've just been thinking about doing the intro. So from topics.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like the insane athlete point because, funnily enough, I had an amazing conversation yesterday with somebody. They were asking me if there was a race that I was interested in doing next year. And I was like, well, yeah, absolutely. What is it? And they were like, it's called Man v Horse. I was like, already that sounds amazing. And I was like, so I need to know more. And they were like, basically, it's a 32K run in Wales.
Okay.
And it's point to point. And basically, it's a load of runners taking on a load of horse riders. And the idea is who gets there first. I was like, that's amazing.
I don't want to spoil it for everyone, but surely the horses are going to win.
So I had a look at the history of it. And apparently, it was 25 years before somebody finally beat a horse.
Jesus Christ. Well, yeah, I mean, it's like saying man versus car.
Yeah, 100%.
That's ridiculous.
The conversation I had yesterday, they said, there's points in the race where it's obviously advantageous to man. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. But I'm going to say the percentage of points where the advantage lies with my running against a horse's is pretty low.
Yeah, considering most horses can run at 20, 30 miles an hour. Probably even more than that, depending on the horse.
Yeah. I was like, I'm game. Yeah, let's do it. But yeah,
I wouldn't hold out hope. I want to see more context on that though, because that's hilarious.
Yeah, apparently it started in the early 80s or something. Two drunk Welsh guys were arguing over in a pub who could get from one pub to the quickest, one on foot, one on horse. And I
think that's generally how most British things start, is two people in a pub having a conversation.
Yeah, drunk argument.
I'm sure the NHS was started the same way. Some drunk kind of pubs like, what if we had healthcare for free?
75 years ago. Wouldn't this be better if we didn't pay?
Yeah. I'm just looking at it on Wikipedia now. So the Man versus Horse Marathon, is that the right one?
That's the one, yeah.
There's quite a few. There's one around Loch Ness.
Okay,
New Zealand and Wales. Arizona as well.
Yeah, it's in Wales.
Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, it takes place in Welsh town of, I can't even pronounce that.
Yeah.
22 miles. Okay, yeah. The event started in 1980 when local landlord Gordon Green overheard a discussion between two men in his pub. One man suggested that over a significant distance across country, man was equal to any horse. Okay, yeah, we'll see how that goes.
That's a bold statement, isn't it?
That is bold. That's confidence in your own running.
Well, 25 years later, when a man finally did it, he was like, I told you.
I told you. Yeah, give it a big enough sample size.
Yeah,
and
at some point,
anything's possible.
Your favor.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Christ. Yeah, fair play though. I want to know about that one race though, where that dude actually beat a horse.
I don't know.
I just over 22 miles. That's nuts.
The thing for me is, I was just thinking, I love it. I love the thought of being an old man and just going, remember that time I raced a horse?
Yeah. I beat a horse once in a race. Yeah. I think that would be fun though. Honestly, think that would be a good day.
That'd be a laugh, if nothing else.
It would be a laugh.
It would be a laugh.
If you had I feel like if you just had one horse racing, or maybe a couple, and then maybe 20 people. It
feels like a pretty. I was having a quick look yesterday. It feels like a pretty even distribution of runners and riders. Which obviously, the more riders are, the less favourable it is for the runners.
Yeah.
Because, like I say,
I guess
no advantage to us.
I was gonna say, I wonder if it's a case of do all the riders beat all the people, or is it for the first time when someone won? But is it just the first time an actual person just beat any of the horses?
First time an actual person passed the finish line.
Actually, passed the horse. I reckon that horse was probably just either injured or not really, probably not.
I think having a look back, the general percentage is, even on the times when a person has beaten an animal, I think the general percentage is animals first.
Okay,
yeah, it's just
if you could what animal do you think you could race and beat, a good level of difficulty?
See, there's going to be animals that are super fast, but I think distance comes into it as well.
Yeah.
So, for example,
I was saying a cheetah, right? You could probably beat a cheetah over 22 miles. Because they're really short, fast twitch.
But I can't beat it over 100 meters.
No, you could never ever beat a cheetah.
There's a really fair argument that I've seen quite a few times, and it's the argument about like the fastest man on the world being Usain Bolt and all of this kind of thing. It's like that's brilliant, but it's in the context of 100 meters. Let's put him over 5K, 10K, 21K.
Yeah.
He's no longer the fastest man in the world. So it's all relative to the context. And I think I think that's like a really, really valid point. It's like, no, I can't beat a cheetah over 100 meters. It just is not happening. But yeah, I wonder what it's like over a half marathon distance.
Yeah, that's the thing. It'd be interesting. I feel like most predators, right, are probably more than likely going to be good on the short distance, but then most animals that have to evade predators are going to be better over the long distance. So a bear you probably beat over long distance potentially, because they're a bit more short burst kind of.
Yeah, they're explosive, aren't they?
But very explosive. But then like a deer or something, you probably not going to beat a deer over 22 miles.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, these are animals as well that we know travel some serious distance. Just
insane distances
anyway. So
yeah.
I mean, this is absolutely not where I saw this going, discussing which animals we could be.
As soon as you said man versus, it's interesting though. It's interesting to see where we are in like the pecking order, because generally speaking, I think of like any wild animal, and we're just so pathetic in comparison to any wild animal that's out there. That in reality, like we have no nearly the level of, well, at least we used to, but not anymore. Like the survivalistic tendencies that they have now.
Gone.
It's just gone. So we're all fragile, whatever.
Thinking about animals like deers and things like that, going out running, I see a lot of deer actually out where we live when I go run trails and things like that.
Yeah, you do.
The amount of times I've tried to grab my GoPro out of my pocket and get a photo or get some video footage, they're gone.
Yeah,
they might have started maybe 5 or 6 meters away from me, and by the time I've got my GoPro out of my pocket, literally pressed one button, that they're out of sight. Like the explosiveness on those animals is huge, which of course it is, because like you say, they have to evade.
But the thing is, there's no predators around here for deer though, which is interesting.
No, but it's going to be a natural kind of fight or flight for them.
Yeah, fight or flight. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
I think they're just going to absolutely want to get out of the way of any.
They think of you that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose the only predator, the thing that actually hunts deer in this country, is us to a degree.
Yeah. It is us.
Like it is us the only thing that hunts. I mean, we are so lucky in the UK to like not have a single dangerous wild animal like at all.
Well, you say that. Last week I was out running, but this is the one time I really wish I had my GoPro on me. I was running down through some lanes, and then suddenly I just got absolutely swooped by a buzzard. No joke. It came in probably about 4 or 5 inches from my head. I was like, oh shit, that one, that was amazing. 2, like, what the hell's going on there? So I stopped, kind of like looked around, and I could see it up in the tree, and I'm guessing it must have a nest or eggs or babies or something. I took about 2 more steps to get back into my sort of stride, came down a second time. And again, like it like obviously
wanted to scalp you, bro.
Yeah, and again, it came within sort of inches of my head. Now, obviously, if that thing wanted to grab me, it would have had no problem. But yeah, like it could have easily just smashed into my head and done whatever it wanted. And again, I kind of paused. Third time, it went for it 3 times. Like, and I'll tell you what, they are massive up close.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely huge. But yeah, that was pretty cool. Okay. But I really wish, that's one time that I do wish, because I definitely could have got it on the third one. That would have been a great little video.
Yeah. Maybe just get a head mount or a chest mount and just have it on permanently when you're out. Yeah,
the thing is, I would say probably about 80% of the time I run, I've got a GoPro in my pocket, and I just didn't have one that day. It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Never.
But in case like you need it on short notice, you can kind of just point or whatever if you're like for the deer, for example.
But that was cool. That's the one good thing about actually living out here and being around kind of fields and things like that, is like you do get to see a lot of animals and weird interactions like that.
Yeah, you do see a lot. Some badgers around. But it's not like, like running trails in the US where you've got like mountain lions to worry about.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I'm
look
going
at
to
like it's
argue that.
ridiculous.
I'd definitely argue that a buzzard swooping past my head is a lot better than, like you say, a mountain lion
Or a bear or anything like that. Like Europe in general is pretty, I mean, is basically fine for any kind of wild predators. We don't really have anything in Europe. Just kind of,
once you
which is great.
get to North America, that's it. And then
North America, South America, like Africa.
And then I wouldn't want to go trail running in places like, say, Australia and things like that, because some nasty little creepies out there.
You can have a boxing fight with Kangaroo Jack if you're not careful.
I'm not confident in winning that fight either.
yeah. Kangaroos are fucking crazy, dude.
Massive. Absolutely.
They fight like old school boxers as well. They've got that really low hand, so they got that really kind of like weird style that they used to have with boxing. With
I like the old really fairgrounds.
Yeah. It took a good few decades for them to realize. Actually, I should probably cover my chin because that's the one thing I don't want to get touched. I should probably start doing this more. Took a few people to get knocked out. There was there's one like thing I love. There's from somewhere in the 1910s, 20s, it was like the longest fight ever was like 115 rounds. It was back in the day when if you got knocked down, that the round was over. But I think it honestly went on for like 115 rounds.
Wow.
Boxing fight for 150. Can you imagine? I mean, the boxing fights did used to be 15 rounds for a long time until they cut it down to 12. I mean, until like the 70s, I want to say.
Yeah, it must be.
It wasn't that long ago. Like, because Ali went 15 rounds in a lot of his fights, so and that was till, late 60s, early 70s. So that's crazy to think that, like,
I think the thing is though, fighting for that many rounds, like 100+ rounds, is like that fight's going to change you for life. The damage on it, like there's things you aren't coming back from in that.
Well, I mean, Ali, for God's sake. I mean,
a great example.
I think most people got off pretty scot-free. Most of the big guys you think of did generally all right. They've still got their head together to some degree.
There's certainly a few guys at the moment that that I just kind of think, like Max Holloway being a great example of somebody that is like, what is your future going to be like? It's like the dude's still in late 20s, I believe.
Yeah,
and he's taken a lifetime of head hit.
He's absorbed the most significant strikes of any fighter ever.
Yeah,
in UFC.
There's at some point
giving out the most at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, fair play for that. I mean, but I think arthritis in the hands and something higher up on the body is definitely coming to him in later life.
Yeah, it's just we don't really know with MMA, do we? Because it's like it's still relative. It's not old enough yet for us to see the post effects. I still think it's not going to be nearly as bad as boxing. I mean, we've never had a death in MMA, right? So I don't think it will never be as bad as boxing is, because obviously there's you're allowed to get back up kind of factor. And a lot of the striking is distributed throughout the body.
This is the thing with MMA. It's the small glove. It's like that whole small glove argument. It's like, you shouldn't be punching with people with gloves like that on. It's like, well, the whole point of those gloves is to get a finish. Whereas, like you say, in boxing, the gloves are padded for the pure fact that you can keep hitting somebody.
Right.
And that's the whole point of it, is you can protect your hands and you can keep raining down shots on somebody over and over and over again. And let's be fair, 80% of those are going to be headshots. Whereas obviously in MMA, you do have those fights where they're absolute smokers and people are just absolutely smashing each other in the head. But the majority of the fights, the amount of head trauma people take is actually relatively low, because if you ever, first of all, punch somebody hard with MMA 4-ounce gloves on, it hurts. The amount of broken hands you get in MMA compared to boxing is massive. But then secondly, it's a single knockout. We're a lot quicker to stop those fights. We aren't letting people get back up when they're dazed and get those second. And we know that a lot of the damage comes from those kind of secondary impacts where people are in that kind of rocked state. And that's the best thing. I remember, like, back in the day when they were kind of like going through the rules of MMA, and there were conversations about having 10 counts and things like that. And that, to me, would have been the end of the sport, because I think it would have moved towards the first high profile death.
It's the most pure fighting sport there is. Like it's the most pure you can get, really, because there isn't a lot. There's more stuff you can do than you can't do. And that in that respect, it is just like a fight. Like it is as close to just a genuine fight that you can get.
100%.
Obviously, it's still a sport, and like that obviously takes on a technical aspect. If you're going there looking for a bar fight, you're not going to do very well. Although obviously some fights end up that way anyway.
Some do,
and they always turn out to be the best, right? So it's like when it just becomes a barroom brawl.
Ooh. Let's be fair, like even the most hardened fan, like I mean, I've seen so many fights both in real and obviously on screen, and I love it when a fight just goes AWOL like that and just
we all love it. Yeah, just two people start fighting in the phone box.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. On the flip side, I can completely appreciate when it's a slow grappling match and the intricacies of what's happening. But yeah, let's be fair, we all love the spectacle of a knockout.
I think that's honestly since day one what everyone has in the back of their mind when they watch a fight is they're waiting for someone to get knocked out. I think that's
100%.
kind of what we all hope for and want is someone to just get knocked out. That's kind of it really. And obviously if we get a 5-round war in the process or something, that's great.
Just makes it fun.
That's also another thing. Fight time is shorter in MMA too.
Yeah.
15 minutes in most fights, whereas
see, this is the thing as well.
The
thing as well with the 5-minute rounds. So you've got longer rounds, but people are getting more tired in those rounds. So again, the amount of damage that people are, I mean, obviously there are some absolute monsters in the UFC and cardio machines and things like that, but the amount of damage that people are going to be landing in those later rounds and in those later minutes of the rounds is going to be a lot lower, and there's going to be a lot less impact behind them just because of the fact that they're long rounds. Having to go for 2.5 or 3 minutes and then get a minute recovery is a lot easier and allows you to go on a lot longer than having to go 5 minutes with 1 minute's recovery. So again, there's a lot of kind of thought that went into that, and it was just a pure safety thing. Because again, back in the day, there was the fights where they'd have like the super long rounds, like 30-minute single 30-minute rounds and things like that. But again, by the end of it, it was just such a slow, drawn out fight. It just wasn't fun. But Pride did a really weird rule set for a while where it was like a 5-minute round, a minute break, and then a 15-minute round or something. It was really bizarre.
Okay. I know there's some organizations that just do fight till finish. Like there's no rounds. You just fight until someone gets finished.
And again, obviously the fights just get slower and sloppier and things like that. I think having that minute of recovery is what keeps a lot of these fights exciting, especially championship runs where you got the 5x5s and things like that. You have to give them that recovery, because asking anyone to go for 25 minutes solid is just
it also gives I think it's nice for them, coaches to have a reset, and like it does make the whole thing a little bit more interesting, like having that little bit of advice and like resetting your brain, and like because you see it all the time, like things change between rounds and people switch things up, and it just makes the whole thing a little bit more interesting. Really,
I've had it myself where I've gone out there into a fight confident I was going to beat the person, but absolutely confident that I was going to do it on my feet. And in that first round, I was getting edged on the stand-up, but I couldn't see that. I felt like I was landing well and doing well. But as soon as I went back to my corner, they were like, take him down. They were like, you'll out-grapple him. It's like he's beating you on your feet, and like, don't get stuck into that game. So that was my game plan. The second round was to just go straight out there, take him down. And that's ultimately what happened. I finished with a submission. But I wouldn't have known that if it was just a solid 25-minute fight. I would we would have kept hitting each other until one of us fell over or the fight stopped. Because there are things you don't see. And as a fighter, it's like you genuinely do think if you're not getting damaged that you're winning. That it's really hard sometimes to tell that the other person is outpointing you or outskilling you. And that's why a lot of the times when you see a lot of these fights and people are arguing that they won it, it's because they probably actually genuinely felt they did. They probably felt like they weren't taking on enough damage, or they were doing enough to win it. It's not until they kind of watch it back that they realize that, okay, perhaps I was getting outskilled in that instance. But yeah, that's where those rounds come in really, really important, because it does exactly like you say, it allows you to reset. It allows you to put a new game plan into place and potentially win or lose a fight by doing the right thing and listening to your corner. Because if you've got a good corner, that's exactly what they should be looking out for. They should be looking at where the fight's going, where you've got advantage, where you've got disadvantage, and again, if you've got a good cornerman, they should be able to relay that back to you within a minute.
Yeah, true. Yeah, sometimes you're always at the mercy of who your cornermen are a lot of the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and I think a good cornerman can win or lose a fight. There's no doubt about that. And how many times have we seen that where somebody's game plan has been so different in that second or third round, or it might even be in those later championship rounds where they suddenly, their cardio isn't so good as it was in the first or second round. They are starting to get tired, and of course their corners are going to be spotting that, and they should be telling them what to do next, where to take the fight and things.
Yeah,
so,
you can tell the difference between good and bad coaches sometimes just by like how they talk when they're in the corner, like whether they're just using like almost like random motivational jargon, or they're actually giving them actionable technical advice. And not just like, you know, you can do this, you can do that. Like, use like do this, do specifically, use this combination specifically, use this technique specifically, blah 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 blah, rather than just being like random motivational crap. Like, you got this to get out of the yeah.
So for me, just because of the kind of person I am, but because you've literally only got 1 minute, is my cornerman for, I'd say, for about 80% of my fights was the same guy, and he was this old school Thai boxer that I'd done a massive percentage of my training with. But because of that, he's like old and grizzly. He was very, very honest. And that example of that fight where I thought I was going out there and absolutely smashing it in the first round, literally, he's like, you're losing on your feet. That's it.
Yeah.
That's enough. That's all I need to know. So it's like, right, what do I do next? And what you don't want is him, like you say, just blowing a load of smoke up your ass and being really motivated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Pat me on the back. He's absolutely honest. It's like, keep doing that, you're going to lose. And obviously, I can't remember now what the exact words were. It was a long time ago. But whatever he said changed the whole fight. It was get it to the ground. Yeah, and that's where you'll win it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think corners are hugely, hugely underrated. It's a massive skill that kind of people do have to learn over time, because there's quite a lot of times, especially when people are first getting into fighting, when they're like, oh, I want my mate to come and corner, I want this. And it's like, no, your cornerman is so important to you. It's like, you need someone in there that's experienced.
Yeah, Mike Perry will just get his girlfriend to do his fucking
I'll just get a girlfriend in there.
I mean,
Mike Perry's a different breed, so
yeah. He just needed his missus there.
Why not?
Just
I mean, there is that as well.
My going on a tangent, I guess. My little top tip for people this week is going to be, so I've never had to do this before. So I had just started with a new client, a few sessions in with her. I was trying to incorporate some sort of hinging motion, which is generally what I could try and do. She's like I think she's 60 years old. So she's quite old, hasn't really gym trained before. So starting over, I wanted to incorporate some sort of hip hinge movement, something where she has to bend over. So we tried Romanian deadlift for a while.
Nice. Yeah.
Which I'm slowly learning over time is really hard to teach people in RDL. It's like, it's weird. It's really strange how people just can't quite get it into their heads, the motion.
Yep.
I think it's just, well, Matt, for me, I just need to, even if I use several different cues and things like that, and what happens, what you'll find is there'll be rep inconsistency. So they'll do a really good one. I'll be like, and I'll try and reinforce that at the time, and then there'll be a bad one or a good one, or like one day they'll just nail it. Next session will come in and it just won't work for some reason.
Yep.
And they'll just forget, or like this won't click. I think what generally helps is if you know what the end position is, and then you just have to find that end position. But she wasn't really feeling it in the backs of her legs, so that's what we were obviously trying to aim for. So I'll try stiff-legged deadlift instead. I was like, it's okay, we've got glutes covered in some other bases, so we'll just try hamstring isolation. So I thought with that one, you only have to hinge at the hips, the knees just stay where they are. So we started doing that, and she just wasn't feeling it in the backs of her legs. So I was like, shit, okay. So I've never had to go to this length before, but we decided to do I was like, I'll try good morning instead. So she put the bar on her back instead of having it beneath her, and instantly like that she felt it. Technique was dialed in. It was perfect. Now you can do a good morning variation for an RDL or an SLDL depending on whether you put your hips back or not. So I was just thinking for other people, if they struggle to feel RDL or an SLDL in the backs of their legs, or it just doesn't click, I think the good morning variation is probably a bit better. You can't load it up as well. just because you're hinging quite a lot, and I think it's just the length of the moment arm is a lot longer from the distance of the weight to the joint. Because obviously the bar is quite close to you when you're doing the other motions, whereas obviously a lot further right at the top of your torso. You might feel it in your lower back a bit more, so it's one of those exercises you definitely want to try and build up gradually over time. But yeah, as I say, if it's one of those things you don't feel that much or very well on the back of your legs, the other two exercises, I definitely would. I think a good morning would probably fix that. Yeah, just position it somewhere comfortable on the back. It doesn't have to be right at the bottom of your neck. Just find that nice shelf, as I like to think, somewhere on the lower shoulder, upper sort of traps area, and try that because I've never really done that variation before. I usually always feel SLDLs and RDLs in the backs of my legs. I don't know if it's just a difference of femur length of the top of the leg. I don't know if it's just a case of women generally have longer femurs. Yes, I mean, you see a lot of women do RDLs and SLDLs, and it's usually fine, but I think it's just one of those things. It's personal preference.
Yeah, it's a funny one actually that you say that, because I was, a few weeks, probably about a month ago, was helping Kate with RDLs, and we had a massive problem with it. Very much the similar sort of thing. She just couldn't get it. And I was really, really trying to get her to focus on the fact of where she should be feeling it, really trying to get that kind of connection with the muscle. And it's like, we just kind of couldn't get it. Now, she was lifting well, she was lifting heavy, but it was just like targeting all the wrong places, essentially. Now, she's obviously getting benefit from the lift, but not in the stimulus that we were after in that occasion. But yeah, I didn't even think about going over to Good Mornings. Like, that makes a lot of sense.
I think what's also good about it is one important thing, obviously, with RDL and SLDL is to sort of, you want to keep not like overly retracted, but a little bit retracted. I think having the bar on your back forces you to be a little bit retracted anyway, because you physically can't bend the bar over the top of your back. I mean, that would be an insane feat of strength. So you're forced to actually be retracted already. So when you do the hinge, it's hard to then collapse inwards, because you physically, if your hands are pressed against the bar and you're retracted, you physically can't. And if you drive the elbows forward a bit as well, like almost like you would if you were squatting, that keeps it locked in place. So it kind of helps with that kind of keeping the back where you want it. So it is a decent. I generally haven't had to prescribe it to anyone before, but it's worked a treat. I think it's one of those things. Just give it a try.
Good Mornings are a massively underrated exercise, and even myself, the only time I've ever put them in programming has just been as a warm up. I've never like really focused on them as being like one of my key kind of core movements. So by saying a warm up, it means I don't really get up to like those heaviest of working sets.
No, of course,
It's just kind of like getting through some motion on there. I mean, and they are a great exercise. Completely agree with what you said there about people are going to feel a bit of the load in their back, especially if they put too much weight on. They're going to be trying to muscle their back through it and things like that. And it's definitely not an ego lift. It's a lift you need to be smart with. But it's probably a massively underrated lift. I mean, how often do you go into a commercial gym and see somebody
no one does Good Mornings? No one does Good Mornings. I think I think with feeling it, I think people shouldn't be afraid to necessarily feel it in their lower back, because the lower back is still a region of whatever, like everything else. And if you wake up in the morning after a day of doing like really heavy, it could be RDLs, SLDLs, Good Mornings, whatever, and you feel like, oh, I've got this soreness there, it's only because you've worked it the day before. It's not necessarily me. It's a lot like you've suddenly you've got a lower back pain problem. You've just done some really heavy sets the day before in that area of your body.
I did yesterday some sets of front squats into jerks. So today I'm feeling it on my lower back. Not pain. I can just feel that I've used it.
You just feel like you've used it.
That whole supporting motion of being in a front squat, being in that front rack position, and then getting the overhead jerk, and I took my jerk up to like body weight as well, so it's a decent enough weight over
it's
my
one
head.
of those things. It's like oh shit, okay, this exercise giving me lower back pain. It's like, well, that's fine, like it's okay. Like, do your shoulders hurt after shoulder day? Probably.
A great example of that is like after people do like their heavy squats, for example, the next day like they can barely walk, and it's like, that's a trophy. Exactly. But as soon as you feel anything in your back, it's like, oh, I've jacked my back up. It's like, you haven't, you've used it. That's all it is. It's just
that's all it is.
It's just in your lower back, and we all have this fear of our backs. Our backs are so strong. Our backs have a really good range of motion, and they're so strong. But I think we've just grown up to be scared of feeling pain in them. As simple as that, really.
lower back pain is one of those ones. Really, it's just such a no-go for people.
Yeah,
like as soon as they feel anything in their lower back, they're like, they'll tap out.
And I think this is one of the things where it's like it's really important to kind of know your own body and like know the difference between pain, as in it's an injury, and pain between I've used it, it's sore, it's going to feel like that. Like it, no matter how much exercise you do, there are going to be days where you wake up uncomfortable, you're going to wake up sore. Generally for me, most days I can go through and I feel pretty good, but then every now and again there's a session where I just wake up and I'm like, oh, I can feel yesterday.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's going to be in your lower back, sometimes that's going to be in your legs, sometimes it's going to be in your shoulders, whatever it might be. But yeah, don't be scared of it. If you've genuinely jacked your back up, then that's different. But then that's no different than I've got sore legs from squatting, or I've genuinely jacked my knee up, for example. Like there's a huge difference between those two things. So yeah, I think the back one is something we are all massively scared of. And I think the more we go into training and the longer people are training, the more we start to realize, and I know you said this a few times, that like a rounded back isn't so bad.
No.
Like a lot of these things, it's just we've been taught that our backs are delicate flowers, and stop. So
the spine is a very robust piece of material. Like it's
think
not
about what it's got to do.
Like it's like Christ. It's like people. It's mind-boggling that like one of the functions of your back is flexing and extending. So then the idea that you're never meant to flex and extend your spine to protect it. So surely we want to train flexion and extension to then make it improve that. It's like avoiding it isn't then going to solve the issue of it doesn't make any sense. Doing a sit-up or a crunch is flexing your spine.
100%.
Like it doesn't make any sense. Like it doesn't add up. Like you need to train like Jefferson curls are a fantastic exercise. Properly rounding your back, going all the way down. Now, of course, appropriate load management and building up very, very slowly over time is the best way to do it. The same with any other exercise. Just don't rush into sticking 100 keys on the bar and expecting your spine to be able to handle it.
Yeah, I've got a great story there. It happened in our gym last week. So for whatever reason, I had to go and train late in the evening one day last week. And when I got there, it was quiet, which I was obviously super pleased about. But it was just me and there was two other lads in there. They were like younger. And I was squatting on the squat rack, the big rack. And they were next to me on the Smith machine. And so first of all, I've got no idea what kind of squat they were doing on the Smith machine. I mean, it looked interesting, but that's fine. It's up to those guys. Anyway, they were there kind of like dicking around. I just got on and did my sets. And then they went out into the back room and they got a bar, and they probably had an argument for about 5 or 6 minutes over whether the bar weighs 10 or 15 kilos as opposed to 20. And then I was still going through my squats, saw these guys go back and forth with 20 plates. And I was like, oh, what's happening here? And I like just poked my head around the corner, and they had 120k on the bar. Now, these guys probably at most were about 15 years old and probably weighed about like 55 kilos. Like they were not big guys. And yeah, one of them just went to pick it up and like obviously just slammed it to the floor. It was just madness. And I was like, kind of just polite. So I was like, guys, you're going to seriously injure yourselves. Like, careful.
If they were 50, they shouldn't have been using it, period.
No. Yeah, because it's like 16, I believe, isn't it?
Yeah, 16.
And then like they were kind of in there dicking around again. And I don't think they actually did any squats or whatever. So again, then I think I started deadlifting, and they came back in. They jumped on the bench press, and again, absolutely like no warm up, no anything. Just absolutely started racking the bench press up, and again like put 100+ kilos on it. And I was like looking in the mirror and I was just like, I know exactly where this is going. And by this point, there was another guy in the gym who looked like a pretty experienced lifter. And we both were kind of watching them. And as soon as the guy went to take the bar's weight, both of us just legged it over, grabbed the bar and stopped the guy from literally crushing himself. It's just like, seriously, man, what are you guys doing?
Kids, bro.
it was just madness.
That's why we have the 16-year-old rule. That's why it's there.
And I said to them then, I was like, to both of them, I was like, start with the bar and build up from there. And again, I think they probably, their egos didn't like that, and off they went. But yeah, it was an interesting one, definitely.
Yeah.
But it goes back to everything like you've just said, like weight management. It's like we've all started on the bar. It's as simple as that. Like if I'm warming up or I'm working around something, I start light. There's no shame in picking up a 5-kilo dumbbell and going through that range of motion and doing the things you need to do. Certainly jumping straight into 100+ kilo bench press when you probably weigh less than half of that is
child prodigy.
Yeah, is not good. I mean, I
would have been insane. Imagine if they actually benched it.
That was the other thing. There was a part of me who's like, they're going to start wrecking this, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like I'm more than, I don't bench very often, but I am comfortable on my bench, and I can comfortably bench over 100k, which my weight is pretty reasonable. But I've got to work up to it. I don't just jump straight on their code and start benching 100 kilos. Like it's madness that anyone would even consider that a good. I mean, when it's a struggle for you to put the 25 plate on the bar, you know that lifting that bar is going to be difficult.
It's going to be tough. Yeah, right.
Yeah, madness.
Christ.
There we go.
Yeah, that's annoying. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't even know how long we've been going for. I have no idea.
I haven't got a clue.
It's currently 9:18. I felt like we started at what, 8:45?
Something like that. Yeah, absolutely. So, how's your training been going over the last week?
Yeah, fine. Well, fucking boring, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, rehab exercises and lifting light weights and isometrics and eccentrics and just boring shit, really.
Feeling the benefit of it?
I think so. I mean, it's only been a little bit of time, but yeah, I think it hopefully will sort itself out, and then I'll do that for the rest of this meso, and then next one I'll build the strength back up again, probably keep things simple for a while, and then I mainly want to just go back to climbing at least 2 days a week again, because I'm only doing one right now and it's depressing. So I want to just go back to at least just doing that, and keep the gym training nice and simple, and just try and maintain all the stuff that because that's the thing, because I'm doing like training for my wrists and all this kind of thing right now. I don't want to then just suddenly stop doing that as soon as I'm rehabbed and fine again. I'll just do a bare minimum amount of volume just to keep, but the same intensity just to keep that strength there indefinitely over time. Same with some of the other stuff as well. Not all of it, just some of it. And yeah, just to go back to going back to the gym twice a week again, because it's hard for me to make progress in the climbing gym right now and push forward, because I'm just not going enough.
Yeah.
So fingers are still improving though, because I can still train that, and obviously I'm still hitting my legs really, really hard. I'm trying to push a PR at the end of this 8 weeks on trap bar deadlift.
Nice.
150 is where I'm currently at, so I'll try and see if I can get 155 by the end of it. I'm doing cluster set method right now. So my sets are broken down. So I do my kind of formula is so I've just started with 120 for 4 for the first week. So that's really nice and easy, not difficult at all, but I always build it up quite linearly over time. So it starts with 120 for 4, but you split it up into two little bits of 2. So 2 sets of that. So do 2 reps, 20 seconds, do 2 reps. Yesterday I did 120 for 6. So I did a set of 3, took 20 seconds, did another set of 3. And then next week I'll do 125 for 4, then 125 for 6, so on and so on and so on. Yeah. Until it's like 140, 145 or something like that. And then the week before PR, I'll probably just see if I can double rep 170, 147 and a half. Yep. I can do 2 reps on that, even cluster set. And then if I can do that comfortably or pretty coach, then pushing 150 should be fine. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, 155. I was meant to weigh myself today. I'm going to do that later.
Yeah, I need to
see where my weight's at right now. Because I feel like, because I haven't been training as hard, I feel like I might have lost a bit of muscle.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
I need to do the same this week. I need to weigh, because what I don't want to do, because I think I said last week that I'm obviously trying to put a bit of weight on at the moment. That's something that doesn't want to become an obsession. So what I'm doing is just weighing myself every 2 weeks to see
where you're at,
where I am, as opposed to like just getting obsessed with jumping on scales. So I should probably get one in this week. I feel like I've probably put a bit of weight on and I feel quite strong, but then it's easy to think that, because let's be fair, there's days where you do feel heavy, and there are days when you feel light, and there's days when you feel good, and days when you feel bad. And right now I feel pretty good, and I do feel a little bit heavier. But it'd be interesting to see if over the course of a few weeks I've managed to put anything on. 1.5 kilos would be quite nice. We'll just see how that
it's
feels.
quite easy to do. Yeah, it's quite cool.
And that's it, because I'm not looking to go big. I'm just looking to get myself up from 70 to sort of mid 70s. Getting up to about 76k would probably be quite comfortable, because that way I can still hold some decent running pace without affecting that too much. But obviously, just from everyday walking around and from a strength point of view, it's a nice place to be as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, we'll just see how that goes. But that's just going to be an ongoing slow process. There's no kind of I need to do this by X date type of thing. That's just an ongoing thing. And it'll be interesting as well, because when I did my first weigh-in, I was 70. I was literally 70 bang on at 9.6 body fat. So I'm hoping to get up to, like I say, about 76, and probably take myself up to about 12-ish, something like that. So still a reasonably low number, and like feel quite comfortable like that. But yeah, we'll just see how that goes. But training's gone pretty good. I've got 4 weeks now to my next race, which means there'll be 2 more weeks of hard training, and then start tapering everything down.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling pretty strong at the moment. I'm at a point now where I'm like, I should probably, if I wasn't racing in 4 weeks time, I would be thinking about hitting some PRs, certainly on my squat, on my deadlift. But I don't want to risk any kind of injury or any kind of tweak. So I've got to just step back from those and just keep going through the kind of sensible motions. And when it feels like a good weight, and it feels like I'm there per session, step back at that point. Never do that one extra set type thing, because again, this is that point where any kind of injury or any kind of just any little niggle or tweak. So yeah, strength is feeling pretty good. Running's going really well, really as expected. Still got to strap my ankle up a little bit for trail running, but I think that's more of a mental thing than anything else. I'm just being super cautious.
Yeah. Might as well. No harm in it.
No, exactly. And especially at the moment, I mean, there's a lot of trail runners, to be fair, that strap their ankles anyway, just as a general precaution. It's just a safety thing. So because the range of motion is obviously very different on trail running than it is road running, and the mechanics are very different, so it's not a bad thing to do anyway, just to look after yourself. But again, I think that's more of a mental thing than anything else, because my mobility is there. I'm working mobility on it most days. I'm comfortably sitting in squats. I can comfortably sit in like a closed leg squat and things like that on the so without kind of lifting my heels and things. So the mobility is absolutely there. So yeah, I think just generally for the next 2 weeks, it's go for the motions, don't get injured, and then taper down.
Sweet, sounds good. Nice. Right, should we call that there?
Feels like a good spot.
Nice.